British Columbia, Canada on the 31st of January. And I am bringing somebody onto the stage in just a moment who is a very, very special person. You guys are going to absolutely love this dude, okay? He's a genius. He's a brilliant brain when it comes to branding. He has been successfully helping all sorts of phenomenal personal brands and corporate brands, especially on the sports side of things, get huge traction in their branding and their messaging. He is a man who is dedicated to making the best use of his own time and his own personal space. So if you guys are those people that are building your company, you're like, gosh, how do I marry my personal life with what's going on? This man I'm about to introduce to you is mastering the art of that particular element of his life. It's totally brilliant. He's gone through a crazy transition. He is the founder of Creative, an incredible branding agency. His name is Zach, and he is coming to us all the way from where, Zach? Where are you coming to us today from?
I'm coming from you. I'll just say Phoenix, Arizona. I could say Gilbert, but
Phoenix.
us Phoenix people just consider the whole Maricopa County as Phoenix. So let's just say Phoenix, Arizona.
Perfect. Okay, so from Phoenix. I love it, buddy. So welcome to the Marketing Wizards Inner Circle, my friend. This is a show where we try and bring all of these brilliant marketing and sales brains and personal development brains into one space and help small business owners really get traction on the things that they're struggling with the most. And you and I know that quite often to be not what they do, but how to get more people to buy what they do, right? So tell me, Zach, you have been in the space for how long now? Over a decade, right? When we were talking before?
I mean, I'd say so, yes. I mean, if we wanted to go way back and count college and count all that stuff and the exploration of life, yeah, like I would say probably about 14 years. You know, I was in the corporate world for about 5 or 6. Actually 7. I was in the corporate world for 7.
Okay.
And then I jumped out and finally took the leap and said, screw this, I'm doing it on my own.
Mm-hmm. And we were just talking off air, everybody. Zach and I were just chatting about the fact that, you know, as a person who's building something amazing, right? And in Zach's case, he's building this great marketing agency. You can go from kind of laying on your belly with the idea to sprinting so fast, right, Zach, that sometimes you're just tripping all over yourself. Mm-hmm. And so before we dive into your brilliant sort of 3 C's of marketing method that a lot of people are going to want to know about, walk us through a little bit about what the process has been to realize that, man, I was running in my agency when really I needed to be walking in my agency first. How did that go? How did that feel?
Well, it was actually kind of funny because I probably would say I took a little bit of a different approach. When I first opened my business, when I first opened my agency, I was going slow. You know, I had a freelance gig. I enjoyed, I mean, I was working $35 an hour for this large corporate window kind of company out there. I won't say their name, but I was working for them and I was working 20 hours a week, 35 an hour, paid the bills. Right. And then I got my first client out here, funny enough, in the window tinting space, not even the same client or from the same person. It was very strange how I got both. There was no marketing involved. It was just through referrals. And that's when I started growing my like services. You know, I was a very big branding guy. I was, you know, I went to, you know, I worked for the Phoenix Suns. I worked for Pearson, were my 2 latest jobs before that. And so I was very big into the creative side and the branding side as I moved up to art director within those businesses. But I was actually like already kind of getting to this point where I was like, man, like I can't rebrand myself every year like most designers love to do, right? And so that's when I started taking up other forms of marketing to get my craving for evolution, right? And that's when I took up SEO, I took up PPC, content writing, and I didn't do. I'm a horrible. I'll be honest with you. I'm a horrible content writer. I'm a visual guy. I'm a visual guy. I can see the finish line. Of course,
good to know your limits, right? It's good to know your limits.
I look at things as shapes. I can form things just like me as a designer. I was always I could never get past design block, which is very similar to content block, right?
Okay.
I could never get past that phase. But when I was a director and I was like this is where we need to go, I was always great at that. That was always my thing. But as I continued to grow it, I did grow slow. I started delegating pretty fast into my business once I started getting a couple of clients, very slowly bringing on freelancers and things of that nature. But then there came a point. There came a point where, I was trying to evolve the business. My success kind of outweighed itself in different means. What I mean by that is, like, I was like chasing this invisible number of success, like
Mm,
off of the fear of being seen and heard, because in my past I was very big on I was seeking validation, right? Seeking
right. Okay.
validation for how successful I could be by a number. And then I realized, I'm like, dude, I'm actually pretty well off. Like,
Okay.
I have multi six figures at 38 in savings, because I'm a saver. My parents were really bad at saving, so I did the opposite of them, and I compiled. Um,
Okay.
but but then something else happened. Then I started doing the opposite. Then I'm like, all right, well, now that I have this money saved, it's time for my growth period, and that's when I
Mm,
started sprinting. And then it's kind of hard to go back. And once you start spending money, you're like, oh, like, I'm gonna start doing this, I'm gonna start doing that. And I was like, whoa, I was so good at saving and going from a 35% profit margin to a 5%
oh,
margin. And I was like, the only difference is I was trying to hire. I thought hiring the doers and the people in the business that could, like, do certain things,
yeah.
was actually going to grow the business. When I realized, oh no, that's just going to build the quality of the product that we're serving. But since I didn't really know my audience and I was still trying to build stuff around that, we were just kind of making crap everywhere and doing all this stuff and not really having a plan or a vision towards anything.
I think
Um,
that's so important, Zach. Like anybody who's listening right now or watching this on the replay or anything like that, what Zach just said is so critical that you wind up getting up and you're headed towards something, right? You're pursuing this objective, and it's like as you gather steam and momentum, you want to gather people, but if you don't do it in a way that's still profitable and it still makes sense, right? It's like you actually erode the thing that made you happy to do it in the first place. It's like you're taking away, I don't know about you, but like profit is nice. Profit feels great. Profit feels abundant. Profit feels like I'm doing a good job. And when I erode all the profit out of a company, it's like, oh man, suddenly I don't feel as confident about what we're able to do. I don't feel like there's an abundance of resources to go and tackle the next thing. It feels shitty, right? Like I don't know about you, but just feels sort of crappy and I lose momentum. Is that kind of what happened for you?
yeah, and I didn't just lose momentum. I mean, I started as I finally started to try to, I'll just say, I was starting to listen to other people too much.
Mm,
I'll say I had too many fish in the hat, like, telling me what I needed to do, and I was just like, I just need to listen to this person because this person knows how to grow a business. I'm part of a
right.
couple of associations, one that's pretty great, but I had to start taking a lot of their stuff out, because not a lot of the people in this association were very, like, brick and mortar, like, hire locally, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But I was an online business. I was something that I didn't necessarily need to
Yeah.
um, do that. But I did miss one thing. I looked at a lot of the companies, and a lot of these companies, I was like, okay, you're making 3 million a year top line, 4 million, 5 million, and I'm like, you're only making, and of course restaurants are usually 5%,
Oh
in
yeah. Tight.
gyms. Well, yeah, they're tight. But that's because they have a lot more customers to bring in, right? But you have to I'm like, I don't want to be a $20 million business and only making, like, yes, I could be making 2 million a year off 10% profits, but that's after you're supposed to pay yourself, right? And so I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not going to be, no, I'm not going to work my butt. I'm already at a point where I'm like, I'm successfully secure. I have a
Yep.
great bottom line. You have to kind of take that leap, that valley of death, so to say. Like, how do you make it to the next level? But I don't need to do how everyone tells me. I don't need to kind of go in and say I'm going to, then hire all these new people, because I did that. And what ended up happening? Bad communication,
Yep.
bad organization,
Delays.
even with SOPs and stuff.
Yep.
A lot of stuff was still in my head. I couldn't, like, get it down on paper. I hired 3 SDRs because I was told that's how you grow. You start
Right.
a
Yeah.
sales team. So I tried that. That didn't work. But really it came down to what I was considering success.
Mm.
It was like, all right, like I would rather grow a $1 to $3 million business. Let myself take the time needed to do it right,
Yep.
and do it a little bit slower, and enjoy. I mean, I have two young children, one more on the way, and I was like, I'd rather enjoy my life with them right
Yeah.
now, and
Yeah.
stop worrying about bringing that next client in, and yes, I still try to, you always worry about that, but um, being able to allow myself to cool down a little bit, enjoy life. I actually had to go backwards, and that's part of my transition. As I was like, all right, let's look at the things in my life and in my business that I kind of lost over the last couple of years. And I think it happens to a lot of business owners, no matter if they're
I,
marketing or what.
I, I
They
think, Zach, it happens to, yeah, like almost, I mean, any business owner that's trying to grow, like they're pushing for growth, like they want more clients, they want some more revenue, they want to expand what they're offering, expand their reach and what it is that they're doing. I think inevitably growth comes with ugly phases. It
Mhm,
comes with phases where you're like, oh God, I turns out I didn't want to grow that way at all. And
mhm,
it's refreshing to hear that even a person who has success in the marketing and agency space, that you're like, okay, but that particular growth was not conducive to the lifestyle I wanted,
mhm.
even though like I'm a business basically, because as marketers we're consultants, right? Like
Yeah,
a lot of the time we're
yeah.
really consultants. We're able to take a step back for most of us, see things from a 30,000 foot view and go, look, I know you want to move more product in this particular point A to point B here, but these are the things over here that all need to be put into the right place in order to do that. And so I think a lot of the time we wear a consultant hat. So therefore we should know how to do some of this stuff really effectively, like grow a company. And yet the reality is that, you know, sometimes the cobbler has crappy shoes, right? Like they're just so busy trying to do these other things. And as you said, they're focused on kind of a bottom line or a specific revenue number, regardless of what that revenue number actually means to their lifestyle, to their profit margins, and to what they're really offering their community. So I think it's an important recognition, and a lot of entrepreneurs, especially online entrepreneurs that are buying into this laptop lifestyle, need to come to grips with, right?
Yeah, yeah. My biggest transition, and I think it's part of the mindset shift of evolving to that next stage of business. I mean, when I first started business, I would see people talk about mindset
Sure.
and personal development, and I'd be like, that's a scam. That's guru. But it took me to getting to a certain point before I realized, oh wait, this there's something here. There's
Yeah.
something here in this situation. And it's true. I mean, we've talked about this before, is that you as a leader, like going from a delegator to, you have to kind of go from a delegator to a leadership type role yourself, as you start to evolve. And as you start to do that, you realize, hey, like me being a leader is the face of the business, because not just the way I act to my customers at face value through the branding
Mm,
foundations and the stuff that we build from a tangible perspective, but the team that I bring on, the values that they have,
sure.
those things that I want them to enjoy their job. I want to help pay for people, but I'll be honest, I only want to help pay for people that want to get paid. you know and
Yeah.
so you have to find that fine line of turning yourself from a delegate, much more of a delegator, to, and I'm not going to say dictator because that's a completely different thing, but more of a delegator of people. And I wanted to build culture. My mindset was, I want to build this culture. I want to build this community of people that work for me that I can pay, and they want to help each other, and we can build this
Yeah.
system, not just having freelancers work at midnight, behind the scenes, and then me go, yeah, change this color, do that. Like, I wanted to build that,
So
still
when
do.
you're doing that, Zach, 'cause I think a lot of people who are building online companies want that. They want this sense of community and culture in their business, and yet they're not in an office together, right?
Mhm.
They're not all getting together. So what are some of the things that you have found that worked for you to help you build that sense of culture and community with essentially sort of outsourced team of staff members.
I will say it's an ever-growing challenge.
Yeah,
It's still an ever-growing challenge. It's
yeah,
it's kind of one of those things that I've had to learn from my business developer, or he's told me, he's like, one thing that you will always have to do, no matter how big you are, 50 million a year, a billion a year, is he's like hiring and firing. Like it's just something building culture. There's just a different form of culture you have to build as you continue to grow, right? And
yeah.
so um one thing that I did personally is I wanted to make sure that one thing that everyone was working on around the same time zone. I can't,
Mm,
I can't, as much as I had, and I liked some of the people that I worked with, that were overseas. I just, we just didn't have enough time to collaborate, and
right.
it was all just do. It wasn't collaboration. And so I actually started to form my team in Mexico. One, because great culture. I love it. I actually grew up with that culture myself.
Okay.
And so I actually love the culture there, and we were able to build a team over there. And so I can eventually build our one of our studio spots in that area.
Mm,
My team can start working more together in that area. I could still be remote, and I could still focus on the sales and the productivity side. But for an online business, I think that's crucial, is making sure that you have people around. It seems simple enough, but you don't realize how important it is until you get to a certain point where you're like, being able
yeah.
to talk to people within a certain time frame and have people set calendars and time block and stuff like that, really does help grow that culture, and holding people accountable too. And so that time
Perfect.
zone really helps. We
Okay.
do schedule. I do really focus on scheduled meetings. I make sure that we have our scheduled meetings, our review calls once a week with the team. I can still do all that stuff pretty frequently, and I think those help a lot, hold the team accountable, but also allow them to voice their concerns. One
Sure.
of the things we're still really working on right now is team communication. Having different disciplines in definitely makes it very hard for relatability, and so allowing people to work with each other is probably, especially in the creative and the marketing space, right? I think is especially hard, because you
Yeah.
have people that are great at one thing, but they have no idea how to do other, which is fine. But as you're smaller, you need people on that can kind of not be a master of one, but kind of be able to master a couple things.
Multitude. Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
Okay, so so that's really good. I mean, when you're hiring and when you're looking for people, that's something to keep in mind. Audiences that you want to look for and hire some people with some diverse skills. But as Zach just put it, hiring within time zone, even if you're outsourcing stuff, has this really intrinsic value that you can all be working collaboratively, which is depending on what it is you're doing, can be really, really important. I know there's some people that are coaches or consultants or course creators, and they tend to be sort of solo-ish, and yet they have a media team or they've got people that they bring in. I think that might be a little bit different, but for the type of creative work that Zach and my team also does, having similar time zones and similar areas that you're working in, really crucial, and allows you to respond to client requests in a far more timely manner too. That's from my experience.
Mhm.
When a client sends in a request, I don't have to wait 24 hours to send that to my team because they're in the Philippines or something like. And we're kind of all over the place, but I can get an answer much faster. So it's really good that way.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you though, Zach, because a lot of people that watch our show, I know they're struggling in some ways to figure out exactly what they want to do. Right? They know they want a lot of them want an online business. They want the freedom that concept is going to give them. A lot of them want to be entrepreneurs, maybe in just the small business space locally, but they're really not sure how to decide what to do. How did your did you kind of have the piano of purpose just kind of drop on you one day that you're really good at marketing and branding and this is what you should be doing, or was this something that you kind of carved into reality?
Uh, that could actually go into a very deep conversation, especially into my three C's, like we talked about.
Yeah,
Um,
we're gonna get to those.
when you're just starting out, when you're just starting out, I actually envy when I see someone come in. They're like, "Oh, we're making like a couple grand a month, and it's just me," and they can bootstrap a little bit because they literally can test the world. They literally can
Mm,
test the world and test all these different things and try to find something that makes them makes them happy and makes them want to push forward with certain things. And I actually promote that. I'm like, hey man, it takes us like 6 months now to like come up with an idea and to switch the vision and to do all that stuff with goals and team and all that stuff. So like take that as an advantage when you're smaller, like try to find your path. Um,
mm,
but I would say that a path, your why is going to evolve. As you grow as a person, so is your why. And so
love it.
I would also say, don't a lot like in college. I say this a lot to college students that are like, "Hey, I want to do business or I want to do marketing or I want to be a scientist." I'm like, "Listen, man, like I've seen plenty of people like you can go in and you can get a bit try for business. Just have some perseverance. Try it for a couple months, move over to marketing if you want to try that after that. Like you're still going to hit your overall 10-year, 20-year goal, which is supposed to be very vague if you do it right. A lot like when I tell an athlete, for instance, like, oh, I always like to use this example. They're like, oh, I eventually want to work with animals, right? That's like their main
Mm,
goal in life. I'm like, all right, well, you could always open a nonprofit and work with animals. You can be a veterinarian and work with animals. You can, do this. I'm like, allow your 20-year goal to be a little bit more vague. Try to come up with something in a scenario or something that you really want. If it's you want things, nothing wrong with wanting things and using like a new house or something like that to kind of help motivate you. But I promise you, you'll get to a point where you're like, yeah, I don't really care about that anymore.
mm. Right. Because inevitably, as you just put it, your priorities shift and change. Like, I mean, you and I have little kids.
Yeah.
Life before little kids was entirely different than it is than life
Yeah.
post little kids, right?
Mhm.
And what'll happen when I mean, my son is 6, my daughter's 2.5. So when they're, you know, suddenly 10 and 14, life will be different again.
Mhm.
Right. So yeah, I think it's important. So what you're suggesting then is that when you're getting started in the world of business, do you like figure out what type of problems you want to solve, but don't be so bolted into the exact way you want to solve them. Does that kind of frame what you were just saying a bit?
Yeah, I'll give you my personal experience if that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
helps. Like as I started to evolve, my dad was actually an NFL player way before I was born. And so I, funny enough, grew this path where I first wanted to be, just like him, and then I went to college and I started to follow my own path. I got into visual communications, but it somehow led me to my path was I want to work with athletes, right? I want to
Mm-hmm.
work with athletes. And so like I really wanted to help them because I saw from my dad's perspective to really start seeing the real inner workings of how their why evolves and changes once if they don't prepare early. So
Right.
that's what I was into. I was totally into that, and I was pushing that. I put my stake in the ground about 2 years in and said, I remember when I said, I don't care. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna test it. I tried that for 4 years. 4 years. I was pushing stuff. I was going out. I was going to conferences the best I could because you can't really find. There's not really an athlete conference, so you can't really just go say hi to them.
Right.
But I was trying to push that, but my products and the services that I provided didn't necessarily. They weren't really validated by the market. Like I was testing, I
Mm.
was pushing. A lot of things were coming up and learning where I was like, like for instance, branding projects, for instance, you don't
Yeah.
necessarily need. It's actually better if you don't like niche down and say, hey, I'm going to have, because your process is going to be the same, right? No matter what kind of business they're in when you're doing a branding project. But the marketing side was very hard because a lot of them were like, oh, I want to open a restaurant, or I want to be a speaker, or I want to open a gym, or I want to go out and open an e-commerce brand. And I'm like, all those are different. I can't
Yeah.
really help you 100%. And so for years, I was like, my heart was like, I want to work with athletes. My heart wanted to work with athletes. But as I started going down my second phase of rebranding myself and finding myself, I realized maybe I was going after that, and that was an ego thing for me. Maybe that was a path I was taking because I was
Mm.
as a validation point for myself to show everyone, like, yeah, I work with athletes, right?
And it
Uh,
was and essentially pushing a round peg of services into a square hole of athlete, right? Like
yeah,
they just
yeah.
like what you are gifted at or doing just doesn't actually fit the market that you're
I
serving,
still
right?
think it would really help improve their lives. But with the way the market was going and the way
Yeah,
that sports marketing evolved,
yeah,
um, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to come in here. And I mean, these sports marketing companies, for instance, they were like, I didn't do sponsors. That wasn't my thing. I built brands and personal brands. And
right.
so they would just outsource and take money off the top of the percentage. And I'm like, there's no, why would an athlete come to me and pay me 60 to 80 grand to go through this process if there's a sports marketer who they already trust out there who's
Yeah,
saying, oh, I'll give this to you for free and we'll just throw it on top of your percentage. Like, and I couldn't do, you can't really do percentage with branding. You just can't, and I wasn't going to evolve to be a sports marketer because that's not what I wanted for the business. And so so I still will, from a large spectrum of things, I will still work with them if they come and it comes naturally. Because as a marketer, I think we do realize, especially with what happened in 2020, that niching down too much could actually shut down like your whole business if you don't do it
yeah. I
correctly.
think that's a very important point, my friend. That's a very important point, and I love that because you realize that when you're let me go back for one sec because I think that what we're talking about here, when you're evolving what you solve in the marketplace. Now, we're specifically talking about somebody who wants to start a business that's solving like a particular set of problems they're good at solving,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if you've identified, okay, I'm really good at this. Like if you're a local electrician, you know what you're good at, you know how you're going to solve it. What we would be talking to you more about would be like, how do you want to differentiate how you do it or what you do
Yes.
versus others in the marketplace? But ultimately, if you're building a company that is, solving a specific problem and you're doing it in the online space, the world's your oyster, right? So that you can kind of serve clients almost anywhere and everywhere. And that is case in point part of the problem and part of the solution. And I love what you're saying here, Zach, about going test your solution over a number of different niches and markets because you hear a lot of the gurus talk about niche down, niche down, niche down. But the fact of the matter is that you might suck serving that particular niche. You might be terrible serving that niche. Like you might not know exactly what their real problems are. Like or the way you present your product or service or what you're looking for with it just doesn't suit that niche. And I think being a little bit more open to the possibilities can actually really change how effective your business can get to and what it winds up growing into. You know what I mean?
Well, and get this. Like you look at it, and one of my biggest pillars during my growth period was contribution, and I
Okay.
was like, I want to contribute. Now, I don't look at contributing as going out and like building, a house. Like, yeah, if you want to build a house for a homeless, great. If that's what you're good at, I
Right.
look at contribution more as, hey, how can you help an audience the best way you possibly can, you personally, instead of looking at it as an agenda. And when you start looking at things as more of an agenda, like I just need to bring money in, like I was talking to athletes,
Mm.
I would value myself the way I was, but I was very stubborn in the way I would be like, no, like this is our price. Like if you don't want to move forward, I wasn't working hard enough to be passionate about my audience. And I'm not saying give things away for free, but when I was going through my period, like we brought a few gyms in, and gyms started being like the people that were starting to come in. And
Okay.
I was like, I I love working with gyms too, but I was battling against both these audiences, right? And I was like, it's like I'm validating this audience, but I'm working with trying to work with this audience.
Yeah, it's
Once
tricky.
once I actually started going back to the gym and bringing back my personal time, it just kind of hit me. I'm like, this is my tribe. Like these are my
Mm,
people. And so now I'm able to look at our services and our products and what we can do best. And I'm like, man, how can I actually I know them enough. I know their pains. How can I actually help them better? And yeah, price might be part of it, but it may also be like, I actually want to work harder and I actually build more. And harder doesn't mean like longer hours. It just means I want to work more in depth on
Sure.
understanding them, getting to know them, and
I love
work
it.
passionately towards momentum. And it builds, I promise you, it's really hard to tell until you feel it, but you're like, momentum is builds, and you feel a lot more joy when you're like, oh man, I feel this momentum now. I feel
Man,
it.
I think that's great, Zach. And it made me realize something like just in us talking right now. And let me know what you think about this. So, we were discussing this topic. We're kind of going deep on it about sort of choosing how and who you want to serve. And in my experience, I find I'm passionate about one of two things. And it depends kind of on what this is. Either I'm passionate about the solution, like the nature of the solution that I'm providing,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm really passionate about the particular individual that I'm serving.
Mm.
Now, I think when you can marry both of those things, it's a pretty profound and amazing
Yeah.
feeling. I don't think those things are necessarily permanent. Like we talked about, your priorities over time shift. But for me, a part of why I love doing business and being in business and being an entrepreneur and developing product and getting it to market and see is because I love these two different kind of facets. And I'm just, you and I talking about it right now is kind of putting this into frame for me. It's like sometimes I love the market. Like I love that type of business owner. I love that particular person and what they're struggling with. And it allows me to go deep and in depth on what to solve for them. So like in my pet business, for example, it's like I love dogs and cats. Like I love them, right? So going deep on all these different problems we can solve for them in that particular industry is fabulous. I don't love any particular one product.
Yeah.
I love the client.
Yeah.
And in some cases, especially I think when you're especially in the online space, sometimes you love a product. Like on the marketing side, I love highly interactive marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Like us doing a live, we've got a bunch of comments on my Facebook page here, like people saying that they love this, they love how deep we're going on this stuff. We got a whole bunch of comments. I love the interactive nature of marketing. To me, I think interactive marketing is fascinating. You know, chats and all these different ways of grabbing someone's attention and maintaining it through interaction, be it through artificial intelligence and bots or be it through live interaction. I find it fascinating, right? Landing page design, these other things, they're not that interesting to me. They're a part of the marketing envelope, but in a digital marketing space, I'm far more fascinated by interactive marketing. So to me, that's my passion for a tool or a specific solution. And I can apply that to all sorts of different businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes when you're building your business, you guys, and I don't know how Zach feels about this, but I think you can find one thing, either you're passionate about the person you're helping or you're passionate about the product you're providing. And sometimes you find that beautiful harmony between both things.
Yes. Yes.
And I think it's important to recognize that it's okay to be really passionate about serving a specific industry. And as Zach said, I'm looking for all sorts of different ways of serving the tribe I love to serve. And that could be like really inexpensive info products at the beginning to productivity stuff. Like there's a whole range of things that you can serve that tribe with. Whereas, you know, serve or just providing specific services, it wasn't something that was as passionate for you, right?
Yeah, it's very simply, I would say for marketing lingo, it's the demographic versus psychographic, right?
Sure. Yeah.
You have, and I think a lot of companies they focus too much on the demographic, when they're
Yeah.
trying to make sales or trying to grow. Because what ends up happening is that no matter what, no matter how good your product is, if you don't like your audience, like you will get burnout. You'll overserve, you'll get burnout, you'll get scope creep a lot. You won't want to understand them, right? And so I do feel like there's a sense of psychological component in there, and I 100% agree with you. I think as marketers ourselves, we tend to overcomplicate. So for instance, as we focus net more on gym mark now, and we're starting to focus on business owners, yeah, I've cut out like half of the services that we can do
Sure.
because I don't think that I don't, I personally don't see it as something, one, that I like to do, but two, I know from the market, like I'm like, and I'll use this as an example, social media marketing. I think it's great for validating. I think it's a great for a validation tool to start bringing members in, or bring people in. But there's a time and a space for it. And you're either a large e-commerce brand spending hundreds of thousands on marketing ads, or you're a small brick and mortar that's just trying to do a small promo here and there, not necessarily use it as a lead generation tactic full
Right.
time. And so we don't do, I'm like, I don't, I'm sorry. Like I know that that's not going to help them. So I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Like I know for the demo that I'm working at, I'm not going to do it. And it's hard because I like to do a lot of things. I'm very
Yeah.
knowledgeable, like you. I'm very knowledgeable a lot of things. I'm like, yeah, I can do this. I just don't know if I want to.
Mm-hmm. So then let's take this back up to the three C's of branding, because I think that those fold in together. Because
Mhm.
as you like, part of your three C's is kind of about putting that why or that passion into your brand. So walk us through here, Zach, what the three C's are, and how a business owner watching this could apply them pretty quickly to really sort of polish up and hone in their brand.
Yeah, definitely. So the three C's of branding are connection, confidence, and contribution.
Okay,
Um,
connection,
I
confidence, contribution. Okay,
Yes,
got it.
yes. And connection is honestly getting to know yourself, getting to know who you are. And that actually, funny enough, allows you to start connecting with the people that you
Mm,
want to connect with. You always
right.
hear all the time, these people are like, oh, if you want to make $1 million, then hang out with people that make $1 million. And it's like, that's at face value, that's kind of true, but is it where, like, do you connect with those people? Are those the type of people you like talking to, type working with? And so
Sure.
until you can connect with yourself and see who you are personally, and me personally, I was so lost in what I was doing that I wasn't connecting with myself. I wasn't going to the gym anymore. I mean, we had
Mm,
kids, right? I wasn't going to the gym. I wasn't taking personal time out. And so that's
yep.
one of the reasons I was burnt out. And so as I went back and I started connecting, I'm like, this is what I love to do personally. It actually helped me build my personal values. And these personal
Nice.
values actually what were transitioned into our brand values, because I'm the leader, I'm the owner. And so I want
Yeah.
to make sure that I bring in like-minded people in the company and clients into the company that have similar values as me. And so that was kind of my guideline for that is those personal values. And this is like, for instance, and I know this is a lot of people's, but integrity. I like to be honest with people. I
Right.
don't care if we're a client. I've always been a very honest person, maybe a little bit blunt at times, but very honest. And so, like, I want to make sure that every single one of the people I bring into the company is that. And if you're just starting out, you know, building your personal values first and going off of those and then kind of transitioning them into your brand values, great. If you're at 500, a million, and you haven't done that, maybe you need to take a step backwards and you
Yeah.
need to say, hey, how am I going to connect with myself? What are the things because I'd rather work 32 hours a week and get a crap load done more efficiently with my team than work 60 hours and be all over the place. Right. And so, those values are very important, and they won't just help in your business life, but they'll help in your personal life too, because
Yeah.
you will start loving what you do. Right.
I always
Confidence.
said that like values to me are like a filtration system for decision
Mhm.
making.
They
Right?
are.
Like, does this match my like? Am I going to be honest and blunt with this client? If I'm a person that has integrity as a core value, then I have to be. It matches.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
my
match I
decision
am.
making process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
And
Okay.
I
And so, what's C number two?
well, and back to that real fast, I think it also works very well with hiring. Like, we have certain
Oh yeah.
questions that we come out, I build off of my values, and when we go through the interview process, I
Nice.
do the same thing. Um, Confidence is like, once you kind of start connecting with yourself, you'll start to know who you are, like,
Mm,
and that will actually build more confidence. It will allow you to start authentically building who you are, your voice, your messaging more authentically, because you'll have this confidence in yourself of like, this is who I am, this is my voice, this is how I want to write. So if you
right.
want to be you know, if you want to be an ass, that's who you are, then be an ass, you know. But I won't work with you. But if that's your personality, then you'll tailor those kinds of people to you, right? But that
Sure.
builds.
And
Um,
you'll on some level you'll have some respect for
yeah,
the
some
asses
level
of
you
the
will.
world.
And if you need to be more of that type of person in the industry that you're in, sometimes industries need those people, So
Fair.
um, but it builds self leadership skills. It's all about, if you want to be if you want to be a leader and you want to start bringing in people that do the work you want to do, you have to, one, respect yourself and have confidence in yourself.
Mm,
And if you're able to self lead, and for instance, learning a certain skill, or for instance, going back to your was the air conditioning company situation. Most of those people do it because they love working with that engineering part of the air
yep.
conditioning. They do it first. People that come in and are like, I've never done this before. I'm just going to start telling people how to do it. Like, there's going to be no confidence there. People
No.
aren't going to see the confidence. They're not going to do that. So building that confidence in yourself really drives off getting to know yourself and the connection side, but it really helps you do those things that you may have some triggers or some dilemmas. Like, a lot of people I talk to, for instance, they're like, I'm afraid to write on social media. And that's their biggest roadblock.
Mm,
Just being themselves on social media and not looking at it from that agenda perspective, but really it comes down to confidence, right? And so once you know who you are, that should be much easier. For instance, I
nice.
write I write every morning in my journal, and I now use my Remarkable to write my journal because it's easy to copy and paste. But I do that with the glorification of knowing, hey, I'm writing, being myself and authentic, and then I will then post that on social media.
Nice.
But it gets my team to know it too. Like, this is what I'm doing, and so this is what I expect you to do when we eventually get you to start posting for us as we grow, right? So
Nice.
confidence is probably the ongoing one, because as you get new
Okay.
hurdles, you're going to have to learn new skills, you're going to have to build. So, but it's a circle, because I think from a marketing perspective, and this may just be us marketers, but I can tell pretty fast when I look at someone's marketing collateral or their brand. I'm like, they put no time in this. There was no confidence behind it. Like, they didn't
Mm,
try. They don't have good customer service. They're not a good leader. I don't want to work with them because I don't see there being good results in what they do, because I can
right.
tell by the way they perform with their own stuff, right? So
Right.
there's that. And then lastly, we talked about contribution. And
Mhm.
contribution is kind of leveraging the connection with yourself and letting your heart kind of be that guide for you on building that belongingness. Where do I belong in this world?
Mm,
And if you grow a business, grow a business and you don't have a sense of belonging in what you want to do, that's part of the reason you get stuck, is because you're like, I'm no longer passionate about this. I no longer want to do this, but it helps you find who you want to help. Back to my case scenario, I was working
sure.
with athletes. I thought that's what I wanted to do. I started bringing my connection back in, started going to the gym, going runs, and I'm like, man, like, this is my jam. This is who I want to work with. Like, these are the people that I know I can relate to on a much deeper level. And so that helped me figure out who I could contribute to the best that I could. And not just that, but then you start being able to build this momentum in this community around other people, that your vision and your personal values or your personal goals, they start to become more of a group vision, and you start
Mm,
more people in that have that same sense of community, that same sense of you belong in a group. And so, not necessarily saying your team's a family, but they're a team. You all feel like you have the sense of belonging,
yep.
where you're working at. It builds this community. And those are probably the three C's that I would say could really help someone get out of a hurdle, from a personal level, and really start to build their business around what their real why.
Yeah, the real passion. So, okay, so once again, that is connection, that's confidence, and that is contribution. So those are the 3 C's that Zach is referencing, you guys. And I love it, man. So I love it. If anyone wants to find out more about Zach or what he does, or find out more about how to apply the 3 C's themselves, how can they find you, Zach? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm always, I'm a chatterbox. I love talking about business in general. So if you just want to reach out to me on LinkedIn and connect, you can find us at in/creative. That's my personal account.
Okay.
You can go to our website, creative.com, if you really just want to look around and browse at some of the content that we have on there. Same with our YouTube channel at Creative. But for all those gym leaders out there that are actually at that spot where they're like, hey, man, I just want to build a community. Like, I'm past that point of validation. I want this to grow. I don't know how,
Right.
Which is usually, funny enough, now that I know my audience quite well, is usually around the 500 to 1 million mark is when that starts to happen.
Okay.
They can reach out to us at leavethatmark.com to learn more.
Perfect. I love it, buddy. And my final few questions for you. So I hope everyone's got great value out of this. I've had a ton of fun. Have you had a lot?
Yeah, heck yeah. I love this. This stuff makes my day when I go on these things.
Perfect. Okay, so Zach, we are January 31st, 2025. 1 year from today. What's the big audacious goal that Zach has crossed off his list? What's the big thing that he's been able to accomplish in the next 12 months?
Right now, our big, audacious, hairy goal is getting to know our customer.
Okay, it's just deep, profound, inside out.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
No,
Perfect.
100%.
Perfect. Okay, and then my last question for you, buddy, is can we have you back on the show in the future? Do you want to come on back on the Marketing Wizards Inner Circle?
Yeah, man, we can do these all the time. We can do these every day if it wouldn't cause burnout for us.
There we go. All right. Perfect, my friend. Well, Zach, it's been an absolute pleasure, buddy. I've had a ton of fun going over this stuff. And I think, when it comes down to it, this conversation today, I think it really frames up some of those struggles that a lot of people who are busy building in their second bedrooms, they're busy building in their basements. They're busy building from their kitchen tables, whatever it is. They're building a company, right? And they're going to that next level. And then they want to expand into a small office space, whatever they're doing. They're doing this on their own. Like, they're bootstrapping this sucker from idea to manifestation. And we walked through a lot of the different ups and downs and challenges and roller coaster elements that process takes. And so I loved our conversation today. So I just want to say thank you very much from myself to you, buddy.
Yeah, and thank you to you and your whole audience for watching this. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Well, let's give Zach a big, huge round of applause and thank you for being on here. Oh, actually, hang on a sec, buddy. I've got some. There we go. There we go. All right, everybody. So that was Mr. Zach, and he is just an incredible human being and an amazing person, you guys. So please go check out his stuff. Follow him up on LinkedIn. And this has been another awesome episode of the Marketing Wizards Inner Circle. Thank you for all of your comments on social media here. We had a bunch of people watching on Facebook, which was amazing. So he has been Zach. I have been Michael. You have been awesome. And this has been another episode of the Marketing Wizards Inner Circle. So go out there, my friends, enchant your audience, make some magic happen. And I will see you next week for another episode of the show. Ciao for now.